What would it be like to be stuck in a North Korean labor camp? Well, you're going to find out on this episode. I'm interviewing Kenneth Bae, who spent more than 2 years in a North Korean prison for his faith. And what was he indicted on? Quote, planning to overthrow the North Korean government through prayer and worship. That's right. And you're going to hear his incredible testimony in this episode. You're going to hear how God brought him to new levels of intimacy with Jesus while in prison. And you're going to hear how people were praying for his release around the world. You're going to hear how he also got to witness to the more than 40 guards who were assigned only to him in the prison. We also talk about the current situation in North Korea and the coming collapse of North Korea and reunification with South Korea. This is an incredible episode, and you're not going to want to miss it. So let's get into it right now.
This is Your Faith at Work, the show that helps you get your faith out of the church and into the world. God is on the move right now in the marketplace and culture through people just like you. You were created for influence and impact. Let's take your faith to the next level. Learn more at ryanshoward.com. And now, here's your host, Dr. Ryan S. Howard.
Welcome to Your Faith at Work. I'm Ryan Howard. I've got a very special guest with me today, Kenneth Bae, who has an incredible testimony, and he's doing some great things for the kingdom and getting people the help that they need in North Korea and coming out of North Korea. So, Kenneth, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you for having me.
It's great to have you on. And maybe just to start out, give us just an introduction. Tell us kind of about your background and what brought you here.
Well, my name is Kenneth Bae. I was born in South Korea, but our family moved to the United States when I was 16. So I went to high school and college and seminary in U.S. I ended up becoming a missionary to China and to North Korea. But 2010, I was actually captured by North Korean authorities. And then I ended up spent 735 days, 2 years and 5 days in North Korea as a prisoner. My charges were I was trying to overthrow the government of North Korea through prayer and worship. So I was maybe one of the first missionary ever been captured for prayer and worship. But I was detained for 735 days, and then through the help with Obama administration, 2014, that I was able to release, and I was able to come home. But now I'm working with North Korean refugees in South Korea and China.
Well, that is just, it's an incredible testimony. And could you maybe tell us about sort of when it happened? I mean, in 2010, you're there. What were you doing? I mean, I think you were helping give tours from China to North Korea, and maybe tell us a little bit about what you were doing there, and then what kind of that transition to what happened.
Yeah, back in 2010, I was able to go to North Korea for first time, and as with invitation with another missionaries. And then I realized that it's possible to bring Western tourists into the country. There was the first time they're opening up the border in that region. So I prayed to the Lord, and then I really felt like the Lord spoke to me clearly that He said, my people's eyes are closed, they cannot see. Their ears are they're pretty much deaf, they cannot hear, and they're mute, they cannot speak. But once again, I will open their eye, they will see my glory. I'll open their ear, they hear my voice, and I'll open their mouth, they'll praise my name once again. So I'll be their God, and they'll be my people. So this is the first time visiting North Korea. I really felt like the Lord spoke to me very clearly. And so I didn't know what to do. So Lord, use me, oh Lord. And then I realized that it's possible to bring the Westerner now into this region as tourists. So I thought, what if I bring Christian tourists? We come to this part of the land, in and out of the land, and then to seek God in North Korea. and pray in behalf of North Korean people, and also worship, because God wants to receive worship from North Korea too, in behalf of North Korean people. So that was the journey that I was able to bring about 300 intercessors from 17 different nations within a 1 year period of time. From 2011 to 2012, we're in and out, continue to bring in Westerners into, when I say Western means the people from every continent, every nations that were able to go in there. So after my personal 18th trip within that period of time, and I was detained in North Korea because I accidentally brought in a portable computer hard drive into the nation. I forgot to take it out from my briefcase, but this portable computer hard drive contained all my mission support letter, all the report about North Korea, and those kind of things was in there. And also Western media, the documentary film about North Korea. So therefore, when they discover some of the documentary movies about North Korea, they were upset. The fact that why did you bring such a hostile material into our country? And then they figured out that later on that I was actually a missionary and tried to bring Christians as a tourist to pray and worship for the people of North Korea. And they're really they wanted to make sure that I get the punishment that I deserved, which was to try to overthrow the government of North Korea. So I got 15 years of a hard labor sentence. I was the first American was sent to North Korean labor camp since Korean War. Yeah.
Wow. And so literally to a labor camp. I mean, that is something that exists today. And so just right there where they caught you, that was it. And then you went right to the labor camp from there?
Actually, I was questioned about a month at their local National Security Bureau. And then I was transferred to Pyongyang, the capital city. I was indicted. And then I went through the pre-trial period for 5 months. And then my trial only lasted for about 90 minutes. One time in 90-minute trial, sentenced me to, I was supposed to get life in prison or death. I was supposed to get that, but they actually reduced down to 15 years of hard labor. But I didn't expect it that I was they're going to actually send me to the labor camp at the time. I thought that I was just there for the negotiation purpose for, the U.S. governments and North Korean governments. They were talking but turned out that I was the first one to send to the labor camp, only designed for foreigners. So when I got there were about 40 or 50 guard and prison personnel working there, but I was the only prisoner there for the whole time.
Wow.
So I had to get up 6 in the morning, and from 8 o'clock in the morning until 6 o'clock in the evening, 6 days a week, I had to go out and work because it's labor camp and to do manual hard labor. I was doing farming work, construction work, and paving the ground, and the whole kind of the hard labor that I had to endure 10 hours a day for 6 days a week.
And there was 40 or 50 guards there, and you're the only prisoner. I mean, that's incredible, right? So when you were captured or taken into custody, was there any contact for you outside North Korea? Was the U.S. involved at all, or was it sort of just nope, you're stuck, and you just hopefully it works out?
Yeah, U.S. government doesn't have any diplomatic relationship with North Korean government directly. So they used the intermediary. The embassy of Sweden was stepped in, trying to become a third party to work things out between U.S. and North Korean governments. So I had some contact from outside, but most of the time that I was kind of in dark. I didn't know what's really happening outside. And then there was an incident after being there for over a year. Dennis Rodman came to North Korea, doing his own stuff. And I guess he claimed that he was trying to get me out. And then I saw him in TV, and then a few days later, the North Korean government was really upset. And then they came to me and said, the media, Western media, is blaming North Korea for, holding me as hostage situations. And then because I guess Dennis Rodman came and said something like, it was Kenneth Bae's fault that he's here. If you know what he has done, then you don't say anything about that. And I think he was a little drunk.
Yeah.
And he apologized afterwards to my family at the time. But because of that, it made international news. And then back then, the Vice President Biden, and he made a comment about how I should be released, and then they got really upset. So I was actually at the hospital because of malnutrition. I lost more than 50 pounds in working at the labor camp within the first 3 months. I was hospitalized for a few months. And then they actually, sent me back to prison as a punishment for whatever is happening outside. Yeah. And then I think at the time, the President Obama was trying to send a U.S. envoy to get me home, but at the last minute, they decided to turn it down. So, but it made because of Dennis Rodman's the little comment. Then it's kind of like a sparked the international attention. And since there was one of the bizarre development in my case at the time. Yeah.
Wow. So you're eating. I mean, was it one meal a day, or was it just scraps?
They provided 3 meals a day, but it'll be just a soup and rice. But a soup is just a very hardly like bean paste. There's nothing in it, and the rice and a little bit of vegetable 3 times a day. So pretty much the same menu, times 3. Wow. And then I had to eat, I guess more than 2,300 meals by myself. That was one of the hard part, for me to be isolated. There's no other prisoner, and there's only people that I could talk to would be some of the guards. Not every guard want to talk, but maybe a few of them ended up later on. I was able to make some conversations toward the end of my imprisonment.
But I think the solitude is very difficult. I mean, so could you talk about your faith, your relationship with Christ during this time? I mean, were you, from the beginning just thinking, well, this will pass by, or I mean, was it something you saw that God called you to endure, or was it something that really shook you? Or, I mean, how was your faith and your mindset throughout that time?
See, when I first was detained, on the third days, I really was trying to, trying to stay strong, but I was worrying about what would happen to other people I brought in. Some of the mission report that I wrote, there are information about other missionaries and mission work. So I was afraid that because of my mistake, maybe many other people would be affected. So I was blaming myself. I was terrified. The fact that was what had happened to all those people because of me. But they made me stand still in the middle of the room all day long, tried to get me to talk. Why did you bring this thing? Why are you here? And those. So, but I had to stand still in the middle room without moving for hours. And then suddenly I felt a warmth in my left hand. As I opened my palm, I saw something sparkling like gold dust. And I felt the warmth start spreading from my left hand all the way to my arm. This is the middle of November. There's no heating in the room, so it was pretty cold. I really felt warmth, and then the Lord spoke to me and said, Holy Spirit is holding your hand. Do not fear that I am with you, Kenneth. Cast all your anxieties upon me because I care for you. And there's no one will be harmed through this, and there's a reason, there's a purpose for all this. And I have no idea what's happening, but I really felt all the worries, anxiety is gone, and I'm starting to feel the peace of God coming down. I really felt the presence of God in the whole room, and I'm starting to feel, joy.
Wow.
And I didn't know what, but I was starting to smile because I feel so joyful. And they saw me smiling from the camera, and they're just talking to themselves, wait a minute, it's not working, this guy's smiling. And they came in the room and said, just go to bed, you don't need to stay anymore. It's not working anyway. So when I lay down, tears, dropped down, and then I felt, and I knew that, God is with me. I thought all this year that I thought that he was with me, but I felt like his abandonment. I felt I didn't know what's happening, but I really felt that God is saying, no, Kenneth, there is something to be accomplished through this. So do not fear that I am with you. So that was his promise. I knew that he would be my rescuer, but I didn't know it's going to take 732 more days before I get rescued. But I didn't know at the time. But every time I've been having difficulties. I was about to lose hope. And there was a promise I had to go back to. And also, I was given back my Bible. I request for my Bible to be back. Wow. And so because my good behavior, that's what they say, they allowed me to read my Bible. So I read more Bible. I guess I read more scripture in these 2 years than in entire my life.
Wow.
And then I guess I read more, I pray more, I worship more, and I really didn't know, why I was suffering. But all this time, after because even though there was a promise of God, but after 7 months, I was stuck in prison in the labor camp. Literally, I felt like I was gonna die. It was very difficult to endure. So I asked God, Lord, how long will this suffering will last? And the Lord said, Kenneth, even suffering is beneficial for you. Wow. But my grace is sufficient for you. Yeah. And so I knew that it was God's way to teach me to draw nearer to God and to be able to fix my eye upon Him more and trust Him more. And then really spend time with Him, and kind of like, almost like in the sense that I'm seeing what God sees, I'm hearing what God say, because I have no one else to look forward to. the trust for, and there's no other help other than the Lord Himself. So in a way, the Lord say even suffering is beneficial, and I didn't realize it at the time, but now I'm looking back and say, yeah. That was a moment that the God wanted to do something through the suffering that I had to endure. Wow.
Well, praise God for that. I give the example often to people to say, imagine you were in another country and captured, and, how close to God you would draw. And, why not do that now? But you literally did that. And so how were you transformed through that? What's different? So you go in. This happens day 3. God gives you this incredible manifestation and clarity that He's going to be with you and sustain you, but then also that the suffering is going to help you, is going to be good for you. And now, 735 days later, you're on the other end of it, and you're a free man. How are you different? What transformation do you see in yourself?
I do have to admit that I think being in prison was extremely difficult, but yet there was God's grace was there. And I can really feel that His protection and His, and there was a lot of miracles story about His provisions and so on. But now I'm back and I have more time. I have more, I'm supposed to have freedom to do whatever I need to do, but I feel like that my intimacy with the Lord is not as near as I used to be in prison. Wow. So I think that, freedom is not necessarily a good thing sometimes. Right. But I learned a lot. And then because of that foundation, spending 2 years, it's almost like I spent 2 years in the desert with the Lord. Mm-hmm. So that taught me to overcome difficulties, whatever difficulty I'm enduring now. Mm-hmm. I've been going through, and I'm looking back and say, hey, God can help me to carry me over. And during those 2 years, then obviously this is nothing. Right. So yeah. I had more confidence and then more faith. And I think this is a result of being in prison for 2 years. Yeah.
Wow. Well, praise God. I mean, so, and I think we say we're as close to God as we want to be. And, Moses knew God face to face, and the Israelites said, you go meet with him and then come tell us about it, And I think that's just such a good message that for all of us to, how close do you want to be? I mean, how much intimacy do you want to have? Are there any days or events or things, particularly while you were in prison, that really stand out that either monumental or just something just interesting or anything that stand out to you?
Well, there's a couple moments I will share with the fun memory first. In a way, I could call it a fun or not. But on Sunday, they say you can rest, but only thing I had to do was to watch TV all day long. But there's only one TV channel. It's all about Kim Jong-un, Kim Jong-il. Yeah, so it's really, I have to watch about 13 hours TV days, wow. Which was really, I felt like it was torture itself, that it was, probably easier for me to go out and work. Yeah. Watch them, for 13 hours a day. Yeah. So one day I was just sitting there daydreaming about food that I was craving. Mm-hmm. So I was always hungry. So I was thinking about what I want to eat. And then I thought that, I want to eat Hawaiian chocolate with the macadamia nut. Mm-hmm. And I thought that would be something I was craving for. Second thing was Kit Kat. Mm-hmm. Third thing was beef jerky from Costco. Mm-hmm. And the fourth thing was mixed nut. And then the fifth was energy bar. Mm-hmm. So I thought it would be nice to have energy bar when I'm down, and Mm-hmm. So I was just smiling, thinking about that. I didn't pray or anything like this. 3 months later, I was sent to a hospital because of malnutrition. Mm-hmm. But 2 months after, my mom, who used to live in Seattle, Washington, she was allowed to visit me at the hospital. Wow. So she came out. This was probably the first time that they ever allowed mother of the prisoner to come and visit. Wow. So I was visiting. She was visiting me, and the second day she came to see me again. And we were talking, and she said, "Oh, by the way, I brought you something." And she opened her bag, and first thing she took out was Hawaiian chocolate with the macadamia nut. Second thing was Kit Kat. Third thing was beef jerky from Costco. Wow. And fourth thing was mixed nut. The fifth thing was energy bar. Wow. I didn't write to her. I didn't say anything to anybody. I didn't even pray. And it's just 5 months ago, so I forgot the fact that I thought about this. Wow. But apparently, the God did not forget. Yeah. It's almost like he took a picture of me, snapshot. Mm-hmm. And it was like 5 months, surprise. It's like, and I felt like, if he cares about me, this much, wow. Then, maybe he is worth, even going to prison for, and he is worth living our life for, even dying for. So I was thinking that even if I'm not able to go back home, he's more than enough. There was a moment that even though chocolate only lasts for 1 day, but there was a sure reminded that, he cared about me, even small little things that I was just thinking about it and smiling. And then he just like a little child, a surprise gift. And that happened. And I realized that I wasn't, there left alone to be abandoned. But he's definitely doing something through this journey. One other thing that happened is, there was a U.S. envoy came out to visit me. There was like about 1 year into my imprisonment there, and then it was a secret visit from the White House, and I guess negotiation did not work out. So they came to see me and said, "I'm sorry, Kenneth, I cannot take you home. Hang in there." And then they left. So that was very devastating day for me. And then a week later, my mom sent me the letter and saying that is, "Kenneth, you need a faith like Daniel's 3 friends. Our God is able to save us, but even if He does not, you need that kind of faith, even if."
Yeah.
And so in about 2 or 3 weeks, I ponder, and finally I knelt down on my hospital bed and said, "God, you know my heart. I want to go home. I'm thinking about the family, waiting for all the people praying for me. I must go home, but not my will, but your will be done. And I give up my right to go home. Use me, O Lord." That was probably the hardest prayer I ever prayed in my life. And then Lord spoke to me clearly and said, "Kenneth, do you love me? Do you love me more than these, more than your wife and your children's, your ministry, everything you've been living for?" And I knew that I wasn't and I couldn't, but I still say yes. And then Lord said, "Then feed my sheep, take care of my lamb. You're not here as a prisoner, but you are here as my son, representing my kingdom. You are my missionaries. You are my shepherd." There are about 40, 50 people around me, but I thought I only saw them as oppressor. People were yelling at me and make sure I'm doing my job. But after I prayed the prayer, my prayer changed from "Save me, O Lord," daily, to "Use me, O Lord." And then suddenly God started to open the door. So my prison number was 103. And they normally call me 103. That's my number. But after the prayer, God opened the door, and then one by one, when there's nobody's looking, they come to me and whisper to my ear and say, "Pastor, can I talk to you?" And they're talking about their family problems and marriage problems. So I'm doing their marriage counseling, premarital counseling, family counseling. I was starting to become their shepherd. I was starting to become their friends. And then one of the guys said, "Pastor, if I become a Christian like you, then what do I have to pay to your church?" They were talking about is that a financial membership fee or, obligation? Wow. And the other guy was saying, "If I become a Christian like you, then is there anything I get? So is that a benefit?" And then I was there for about 2 years. One of the young guard asked me, "So you said that God is real. If God is real, how come you're still here? No one stayed this long before. And how do you explain that?" And I said, "Well, maybe God has different plan. Without me, how are you going to hear about God or anything from outside?" And he said, "It's true. I never heard anything like this before in my whole life." See, I was the only person who knew about Christ. They never heard about name Jesus before. And this is one of the investigator and asked me, "So I heard about God before, never heard about Jesus before. You just tell me, where does Jesus live? In China or in Korea?" I thought he was kidding, but this guy was born in Pyongyang, capital city, went to college there. He worked for the National Security Bureau. He never heard of the name Jesus before. See, Pyongyang used to be called Jerusalem, the Far East. There are more Christians living in Pyongyang 100 years ago, the largest church, the largest seminary, largest Christian school, they're all in Pyongyang back then, but now it become a desolate place. And this is one of the reasons why I realized I had to be there unless I become a prisoner in North Korean labor camp. How they're going to hear about God or anybody and anything from outside? And this is a moment that I realized that I had to come here. Even though I thought I was a missionary, but I was bringing in people in and out to help others to pray and worship, and I thought I was more like a tour guide. Sometimes I was thinking that way. I realized that actually I'm a missionary God sent me to, and then to the people often been forgotten. We talk about Kim Jong-un and nuclear in their missile, and the program is a lot, but we don't really hear much about the 25 million people living in darkness without having access to gospel or name Jesus. And this is the only place in earth still like that. So I realized that that was one of the purpose for me had to be in North Korea. And then for me to come out to be able to share like this, to letting the people around the world know that how North Korea and people need a prayer and our love and our attentions.
Wow. And then we're going to talk more about that. But before we get into that, maybe just tell us about your transition. You got out. Just tell us about how you got out and what happened.
Yeah, in 2014, November 2nd was my 2 years anniversary in North Korea. So November, November 2nd, November 3rd was 2 year anniversary. November 1st, it was a Saturday, one of the prosecutor that came to see me and said, "Hey, you've been here for 2 years. So you only need to stay 13 more years now." So 13 years later, you'll become a 60. So 60 is a big birthday to celebrate. So we'll celebrate your birthday together 13 years from now. No one is coming for you. You've been forgotten. Your government abandoned you, and you're here to die. And that was his message. But he's been saying that for every Saturday for a whole year, and 52 times they say the same word. So I nicknamed him Mr. Disappointment. Because every time, he comes, I get disappointed, I lose, and I become desperate and depressed. So I had to choose whether to listen to Mr. Disappointment or listen to God. God has given me more than 70 verses, and reading the Bible, and then also more than 450 people wrote letters to me around the world and said, "Kenneth, you are not forgotten. We are praying for you. We're standing with you. We're remembering you. Hang in there." So I read all this letter on Sunday, and then on Monday, which is November 3rd, that was 2 year anniversary. Lord woke me up early morning and said, "Kenneth, open your Bible to Zephaniah chapter 3, verse 20. I had no idea. I opened my English NIV version Bible, and then it said, "I will bring you home." That was the scripture. Wow. And then there was a Monday, but on the Friday, U.S. envoy arrived, Director of National Intelligence, James Clapper, and about 20 some other officials came to get me home. So on November 8th that I came home. Wow. So on the way home, I mentioned to them, on Monday, the Lord spoke to me, He's going to bring me home. They were so surprised. We left Washington, D.C., White House on Monday, November 3rd. Wow. So God sent me a U.S. government plane over, and then at the same time. So I've been telling people, President Obama knows my name, but more importantly, Heavenly Father knows my name. And I realized that, it's incredible to see on the way home, another Lord's message came to me. It pretty much saying that is, "Kenneth, how many people have been praying for you, Kenneth, remembering you? Millions of people pray for you. And they have not forgotten you. I have not forgotten you. And I haven't forgotten 25 million people that do not have access to name Jesus either. So go home and tell the people what I've done for you, and also tell them as they pray for you, and now prayer was answered, and now you're being rescued and coming home. At the same time, tell them to pray for the people of North Korea, and they will be rescued and they'll be come home soon. So, and that is the moment that I realized my mission, I was given a new mission now, is going around the world, wherever I go, telling the God's story, God's faithfulness and God's protection. And then as God is reminding me to letting those people, yes, your prayer counted for my rescue, my salvation. Wow. And now do the same for 25 more million people's life. And God will rescue them someday, and He will receive glory, and we'll be shouting out all together. So when I came home, every place I went to speak and share, afterwards, a lot of people came up to see me and say, I'm the one that prayed for you. I prayed for you too. So, I mean, it doesn't matter. I've been to El Salvador, Brazil, European countries, even Cambodia, little town. And so people say, I remember you. I prayed for you when I saw you from the TV. It was such amazing stories. And then after I came back, I landed in near Seattle Tacoma airport, and then it was especially local area. It was national news. So everybody saw me coming home. Mm-hmm. So every place I went after I came out, then everybody recognized me. They were cheering and so on. On third day, I went to the mall to buy some clothes. And I had put a baseball cap on, and then sunglasses. I don't want people to recognize me anymore. And there was a lady, African American lady, saw me from coming into the mall. She started screaming and yelling and said, "Kenneth!" Yeah. And she ran and she gave me a big hug, and tears dripping down from her cheek, and said, "Kenneth, I prayed for you for 2 years." Oh my gosh. I didn't know what to say, because I said, who am I? I'm just one missionary. But people around the world prayed for me, and prayer really worked for them and for me as well.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible. And so now God's opened a lot of doors for you, and you've got lots of connections, and maybe tell us, I know you've got a couple of ministries now that you're working on with refugees, and you've got a couple of key areas that you're focusing on. Maybe tell us about those.
Yes. So ever since I came back, and I was able to travel to many different nations, and I spoke at U.S. Senate and then also Congress and to UN and many other places. And then turned out that my mission, one of the missions that God has given me, is to start a prayer movement. So I started something called Nehemiah 1 million prayer campaign, prayer ministry campaign. Mm-hmm. So we wanted to make sure that there was about 177,000 people signed a prayer petition for my release to, not prayer petition. 177,000 people signed the petition to President Obama, to White House, to get me home. So I thought that what if we do a 1 million prayer petition campaign? We're signing to the Lord and say, I'll remember, I'll stand with, I'll pray for the people of North Korea. And that'll be our commitment. If 177,000 people can do that for one person, how about we get about 1 million prayer warriors around the world to sign up? So right now we have about, we don't have quite a bit of number yet, but we have over 6,000 people from 89 countries have signed the petition and say, I will stand for the people of North Korea. I will remember and pray for North Korean people. And that ministry grew. And so I studied an NGO called Nehemiah Global Initiative. I moved to South Korea and working with the North Korean refugees. There are about 35,000 refugees now living in South Korea. So out of that, about 70% of them are in 20 and 30s. So I've been working with North Korean refugees, especially younger people, and then see just like days of Nehemiah days, that as 70 years pass and Nehemiah cried out to God, and God heard his cry, his prayer. God used him to rebuild the wall and the restoration of Israel. I do believe that maybe that through the lives of many young people who used to live in North Korea, now South Korea, but if we can really help them to develop them to educate through the education and through the discipleship ministry, providing scholarship, providing English training, so whatever means necessary, that how if we can develop them into the Nehemiah for this generation, what will happen when the two countries united and unified, and we want to see them, to go back to North Korea, really become a voice for the light for the people in North Korea. So we have that ministry going on this summer. We're actually doing something called New Korea English Camp in Jeju Island off the coast of Seoul, in Korea. We got about 100 refugees getting together in creating about 50 volunteers some of them from U.S. is going to be there. We're going to spend about seven or 8 days together, learning English, but at the same time, and really having a heart for unified Korea and pray to become a Nehemiah for this coming generation. I have another ministry also working with North Korean refugees, but they're in China. About 100,000 North Korean refugees are in China. During 1990s, about more than 3 million people starved to death. About 300,000 or more actually crossed the border, ended up in China, but many got captured and sent back. But there are more than 100,000 still living in China, and they were forced to marry Chinese men. But it's not a legal marriage. So anytime they get captured, they get sent back to North Korea. And so they're hiding, but they're having families there now. But a lot of them are living in the very remote villages, and they don't hardly have anything. So we've been reaching out to them, helping them. Some of them to be rescued, to be able to come to South Korea. Some of them need to be medical attention, need to be given, and their living expenses. And then some of their children were born. So we're helping them with their scholarship and so on. So we have a relief. It's called NK Relief, and this is another organization we started to provide relief work for North Korean refugees in China, and also the North Koreans living in North Korea. So we're trying to help the family members of refugees. So there's a way to connect the refugees' family members inside of North Korea. So we're trying to help those families who desperately need their help.
Wow, and very impactful ministries that you have. And maybe could you tell us a little bit about the current situation in North Korea? I mean, what life is really like for people there, or what they're experiencing, and just anything else you can share about the current situation there?
Yes. Kim Jong-un has been in power for now more than 10 years now. He's become more permanent leadership position now. But because of COVID-19 situations, the country's borders are completely sealed. That means that before, even though it was sealed, they were able to do some illegal smugglings in and out of the China borders, and there's how many people survive. But even that has been all closed down, and then the local their free markets are closed down, and they don't have anything to sell anymore, and therefore people They lost more than 3 million people during 90s. There's the 1990s and 2000, more than 3 million people starved to death. But now we are getting reported that people are being starved. People are starved to death now. It could be worse than what it used to be before. Before, that people were able to cross the border, at least to survive into China and so on. But even that's not possible. Every year, over 1,000 or more refugees came out from North Korea to China, and China to South Korea. But now that borders are sealed, so less than about 20 or 30 people were able to make it to South Korea in the last couple of years.
Wow.
So it's been a very, very difficult situations. And the COVID-19 situation is also really bad. There were reports that one of the large city near the China border, 80% of populations are infected in a way. Therefore, the Chinese government is closing down their borders so that they don't want any North Korean, illegal or legal people were coming over from North Korea at this point. So there's no vaccine, there's no vaccination, there's nothing, there's no really any kind of medication to help the people, and their immune system is not good, and then there are half of the population is suffering the malnutrition. So it could be a disaster. So this is really a time that we as international community really need to having an eye opened up for people in North Korea, because we can see the modern day disaster again happening in that border that we don't know about because it's totally sealed, and we have no information coming from inside of North Korea. One good thing is China and North Korea are sharing about more than 1,000 kilometers border, and many of them used to have their Chinese mobile phones. So sometimes we get their current situation, current report from the family members of defectors, and then through their, maybe they can turn on the mobile phone for 5 minutes to talk to their family members in South Korea, and then turn it back. They've turned it down, but they can only do that like a few times a year if they were able to communicate with family members outside of North Korea. But we're getting a report here and there and seeing that it's actually is a chaotic what's happening inside. So I'm really, I think it's now time that we all need to pray for reunifications and peaceful resolution, but at the same time, we need to start prepare for possible opening and the collapse of North Korea. Also, what will happen after North Korea collapse? How are we going to be helped to rebuild the life of North Korean people? And as a again, that there's no accessibility of gospel in any source at this point. So,
wow. And so you said possibly this collapse of North Korea, and I think you mentioned reunification. Could you talk more about? What else can you say about that? I mean, as far as maybe what possibly would happen and what we would see.
When East and West Germany was able to unify, it was a different time and different season. But at the time, many people from East Germany escaped East Germany to Czechoslovakia and different countries, ended up in the West Germany. Many lives, hundreds of thousands of people that came out, and then that kind of led into collapse of the Berlin Wall as well. And I do believe that the more people need to escape from North Korea, more refugees need to come out. I think that will help to fasten help to get the wall, in a way, this wall to come down in North Korea as well. And at the same time, we also need to make sure that the people in North Korea need to know about what's happening from outside, because they have no idea what it's like to live outside of North Korea wall. So this is something that the two-way need to happen is that many more people need to come out, and then many more information need to go in. And then also, and with the power of prayer, combination, we need to prepare for that. I do believe that, Soviet Union collapsed, in after 73 years, and Berlin Wall came down in after 40 years. But Korea is the only place still standing. Wall is still standing after 75 years, and I do believe that. I think that time is coming very soon. But we need to know what to do after if that happens. So if we are thinking that, nothing going to happen another 20, 30 years from now, then it will be disastrous for people living inside. But we need to, we as a Christian community need to be in more anticipation that, trust in the Lord, that God will free the people. And once that happens, then are we ready as a Christian community, are we ready to step in and help and moving in to help those people? I believe that 4 things are very essential, and I think that we need to prepare after the wall come down. One is the Bible. When Soviet came down, that Western countries did not really have many our community as a Christian community. We didn't really have enough Bible store up for the population of Soviet. I do believe that was one of the key the factors. That even though there are a lot of different organizations that help out to smuggle in the Bible inside, I do believe that when those are open, and then we need to see there more than 7 million households in North Korea. So I hope that within the first year, we want to see if we can deliver more than one Bible for at least each home. There'll be 7 million Bible need to be we need to prepare the 7 million Bible. And then one of the projects we're trying to do is we're preparing 1 million Bible for 1 million household in Pyongyang, the capital city. So that within the first month of the opening of North Korea. So that's something that we're working on at this point. The second thing we need is we need to prepare people. And we need people from all sphere of societies need to go in as live out the gospel. And then living among the people of North Korea. So I think this is very important, the fact that we need doctors, we need lawyers and business people and educators all need to go in and say, how to live as Christians. We cannot say that, here's gospel, you guys figure it out, but we need to go in and say, hey, we're live among you and work with you side by side to show the Christ and through our life together. I think this is very important. And the third thing we need is we need to prepare finance, almost like the restoration of the Wall of Jerusalem. It costs money to rebuild the society, so we need to prepare the finance for the starting not only rebuilding churches but also schools and hospitals and so on. So I do believe that we need to come up with a concrete plan that including the finance as well. And then the fourth thing will be networking with there are many NGOs and Christian organizations, churches need to work together and see if we can learn from one another and then maybe partner with one another, and to be able to come up with some concrete plan once we go into North Korea, that we can work side by side rather than as a competition, but rather than with working hand together. Yeah,
that's very clear and focused. And if people want to support you and partner with you, how can they do that, or where should they go, or what kind of support would be helpful for you?
You can check out our website and see what we are doing. You can go to ngikorea.org, ngikorea.org, or NK Relief and .org. It'll be the two website. Okay. And then also we have a separate page for our prayer ministry page. It's called Pray, and number 4, NK .org. So there will be 3 websites that you guys can check out. And then, so one of the things that we're doing is to really wanting to get the Christian community to, North Korea has been like that for the last 70 years, but nothing has really changed. But inside, a lot of things been changing. We don't know, but there are many Bibles have been smuggled into North Korea, and now is many in digital form, the media. It's been, we've been having the way to reach them in digitally as well. So I do believe that it's about us to say, okay, if they matter to God, and then they should matter to us too. And if God can deliver Kenneth Bae from North Korea, and definitely God can do more for the people in North Korea too. So if they can be part of that, because I realize that not only people wrote letter to me, but many people wrote letters to their congressmen and to senators and governors and say, or to White House and say, please bring Kenneth Bae home. There was a clear message at the time, and then I didn't know any of that when I was in North Korea, but so many people, so many strangers. And then they were saying that, I'm praying and God is giving me a special heart for Kenneth Bae, so I'm praying for Kenneth Bae. And that was a message. So now I realize that, it's always our turn, to especially those that are suffering, and especially those who never heard the name Jesus before. I think this is the only place in earth still like that. So I do believe that we need to see it as a different angle. I know there are many places we need to pray and support and to reach out, but the North Korea, it has to cost something, but it'll be still worth it to see what will happen to people. And I can see people who came out, and this is what they said. The best decision of my whole life was to escape North Korea, because they said they didn't have a dream. They couldn't have a dream in living in North Korea, but now they're able to leave North Korea. Now they're in South Korea, and now they have a new life. And then they're able to know the Lord, and their life become upside down, and they were going to say, I want to become a Nehemiah for this generation, for our countries.
Wow. And so change is happening. There's a lot of hope and excitement and encouragement. Now's a great time for people to get involved. And it's just incredible the work that you're doing. So, Kenneth, this has been incredible talking with you. Thank you so much for spending this almost an hour with me. And I thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Well, thank you for our listeners for joining us as well. As you heard from Kenneth, you can visit ngikorea.org, nkrelief.org, and also pray 4 nk.org to get involved. And now is the time. Get involved and show your support and be praying for Kenneth, his ministries, and the people of North Korea. And if you want to find out more about this podcast and hear other episodes, you can visit ryanshoward.com. Thank you so much for joining us. God bless, and we'll see you in the next episode.
If you enjoyed this podcast, be sure to subscribe, and you can help spread the word by leaving a 5-star review and sharing it with your friends. Visit ryanshoward.com to learn more about living the intentional, influential, and impactful life you were created for.